Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel and welcome to the video where I find out what my favourite and least favourite episodes are of Supernatural Season 6. If you've not watched my channel before, hello, my name is Scott, I do reactions here on YouTube, and at the end of every season of Supernatural I put all the episodes into a bracket fight where one episode is pitted against another and I pick my favourite, and then we do that with another two episodes and we whittle it all down and down and down till we get my favourite episode, and then we reverse it and do it till we get my least favourite episode of each season. And I enjoy it when you guys play along, so grab a piece of paper, grab a pen, and when every match comes up, write down what you would choose and let's play along and find out what our favourite episode and least favourite episode is of Supernatural Season 6. Okay, so the first match we have is The Third Man versus Two and a Half Men. Weirdly enough, episode 3 and episode 2 of the season. Now, The Third Man... What was The Third Man about? I'm not going to lie, I spent a minute here thinking, and all I can really remember is Sam at the beginning with no top on with that sex worker, because it was very fucking sexy. Him working out and his body, he's obviously kept in good shape, and that's all I can remember of the episode, so I had to go look it up. Which is not a good sign. And when I read the description of the episode on Wikipedia, I was like, oh yeah, it's the one with Balthazar and the weapons. Of course it is. But the fact that I don't remember it from the title is worrying me a little bit. But I remember enjoying the episode. I just think the fact that I had to look it up means it hasn't stuck in my head, so it probably wasn't as memorable when I watched it. It was just a good episode of the show. Versus Two and a Half Men, quite a memorable setup. Dean has to take care of a baby, and then I think Sam gets involved as well. And it turns out this baby is a shifter. And I believe that's kind of our main introduction to the Alphas, if I'm correct in thinking, because they wanted to give the baby over to the Hunters, like the Campbell lot, which was a bad idea, because they are not good people, as we saw, particularly Samuel. But they ended up not doing it, and the Alpha shifter came along and stole it. I think that all happened in episode 2. So it was a good introduction to the Alphas, and whilst neither of the episodes I remember being my favourite of the season, I think between the two, the fact that I actually remember Two and a Half Men more than I remember The Third Man, minus this beautiful, beautiful image of Jared Padalecki, means I've got to pick Two and a Half Men. Next match is between Frontierland and Mommy Dearest, 2 later season episodes. Frontierland, very unique episode. Sam and Dean went back to, I want to say the 1830s, 1870s, somewhere in the past, when Samuel Colt was alive and he had the gun, and they had to go back because he killed a phoenix and they need the ashes of a phoenix to kill Eve, which is very weird because the next episode is the one where they kill Eve on this match, and they go back to the Wild West, and it was actually a really unique, fun episode. Stylistically, different opening titles, seeing Sam and Dean dressed as cowboys, love it, because I think cowboys are quite sexy in general anyway, but Sam and Dean are already sexy, but them in cowboy outfits, can't lose, right? So that was really fun seeing like Dean's excitement to be back in this time. However, he was kind of so excited because of the movies that he's watched, and so he was getting things wrong. Like, he kept thinking he knew better because of the movies, and the people there were just like, what are you doing? Like the outfit that he wore that he thought was going to be cool. And even the people in our time and their time mocked it. And he asked for the top shelf whiskey and it was horrible. Blah, 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 blah. It was all really fun. Really good ending where they didn't get the ashes in time. But because Samuel Colt had met Sam, he set them forward like in a package to be kept for hundreds of years or 100 years, whatever it was. Can't remember the exact date they went back to. And they kept it for a long time anyway to get sent to Sam and Dean when they needed it. But I just thought it was a really fun set up for the episode. It wasn't very Monster of the Week because it was sort of Monster of the Week in that we had to go back in time to this Wild West episode about this phoenix, but obviously it tied it into the ongoing mythology, whereas Mommy Dearest was very much based on the ongoing storyline of the episode. How do we find Eve? How do we stop Eve? And we eventually tracked her down to this cafe after she created all these different monsters, and it was the showdown that I didn't realise was coming so early in the season. But I know this was like episode 19, I want to say. But the fact that it came when it did surprised me, because I thought she was going to be the villain till the end. Obviously, there was a big reveal at the end of this episode when we found out that Corelli and Castiel are working together, which was great. And that was part of maybe why Eve died so quote-unquote soon, because she wasn't the real villain of the season, which I know people have commented a few times. I'm still unsure how I feel about that twist, but I can see it more now in kind of like the grand scheme of things over the course of the season. But it was a shame to see her go. I thought the Eve actress was really good. It was good to see the actress whose name I don't remember, who plays Sam and Dean's mum again. She got brought back as well. Like, Eve turned into her because she was the mother. I was like, maybe you'll listen to me more if I look like this. And that was a bold move because Sam and Dean are very triggered when it's about their mum. Both very good episodes, though. Both really strong episodes. One very unique, Wild West, quite fun. One, the end of Eve. Eve, the big twist with Krusty and Cal. I can't even speak. Between Crowley and Castiel. But I think just my initial reaction is probably Frontierland. I think I enjoyed the idea of it more. I like the cowboys, the time travel, which is very rare for me. I'm not a big fan of time travel episodes, but I thought this was done pretty well. I liked how they used very like stereotypical things from the era that we see in movies and that. But I also really enjoyed Mummy Dearest. I thought that was a good thing. I think maybe just my reluctance to accept that was the end of Eve. It's probably swaying my mindset a little bit. But what I will say is I don't think either of these two are going to be my favourite of the entire season. So I'm not too worried about the decision, but I'm going to pick Frontierland before I've changed my mind. Okay, All Dogs Go to Heaven versus Exile on Main Street. So All Dogs Go to Heaven was about the dogs that were they skinwalkers, were they shifters as well, or was there something else? There's a couple of monsters in the show that are very similar, and I can never remember which one's which, and I get confused between the two. But essentially they were dogs that were monsters that turned into dogs or shifted into dogs. And we focused mainly on this one that we see on this picture that I chose, who was living in this house, loving this family, but obviously we know it was like a monster, like a humanoid looking monster, and it was all about how different dogs were killing people. And was it about the alpha? I think there was an alpha involved, maybe. And the family learning that their dog is not their dog, it's actually a monster, and how they kicked him out, which was understandable, but also weirdly sad. Like, we saw that the monster just cared about that family, he loved them, and he wanted to live there and just live his life out as their family dog. But the weirdness of the fact that he was sleeping on their bed, like licking her in when she was asleep and stuff, and it's like, but also you're not a dog, you are this monster. And there was a bit creepiness mixed with sadness, but I really enjoyed it. Exile on Main Street, first episode of the season. How do we go back after that season finale, that cliffhanger with Sam being back? We saw Dean living a normal life with Lisa and Ben, trying to live a normal life anyway, but then monsters came. After Sam came back, he showed up to be like, yo, I'm alive. Dean was like, oh my god, I've got to go tell Bobby. Bobby was like, hi Sam, because he already knew. And then we saw Yellow Eyes back, but it wasn't really Yellow Eyes, it was about gin and other things. We got introduced to the Campbells. Bleh. Which episode do I prefer between the two? I don't really know. The first episode definitely felt very different because it was like a different vibe for the show. Dean living this normal life, and how does that get introduced back into the monster hunting? Whereas I don't think All Dogs Go to Heaven is going to be anyone's favourite, but I quite liked it because it had a lot of moral things to talk about in regards to this monster / dog, about he was trying to do a good thing, but he was a monster, but he wants to live there, but it's not right for him to do so. And I think there's more interesting to talk about. So because I can't really decide between the two, I'm going to pick All Dogs Go to Heaven before I change my mind. Okay, The Man Who Knew Too Much versus Unforgiven. The Man Who Knew Too Much season finale. Very weird for a finale. It didn't feel like much of a finale till right near the end. The first bunch of the episode was all about Sam having no memory. Both big Sam episodes actually here. Most of it was about Sam trying to get his memory back. Castiel took the wall down, all the memories came flooding back, and his brain kind of split. And so inside his head he was trying to find different parts of himself and kill them to kind of absorb them all back, so that he knew exactly what he'd done on his year off, finally, and just bring in all of the bad parts of him to become one again. It was good, but it was only the last part of the episode that was really good. So the Castiel, Crowley, Raphael stuff with the portal to Purgatory, Castiel sucking in all those souls and becoming the new god, bursting out, blowing up Raphael, Crowley running away, but then the final moments of, I am your new god, bow before me, and it being quite scary, really scary, very dark for Castiel. That was a dark moment. Unforgiven was the episode about Sam's missing his year and one of the cases they went on with the spider creature, and we got to see a bit more about how dark soulless Sam was. We already knew he was, we saw bits of it at the start of the season, but in this one we just saw more of that darkness, as we did in The Man Who Knew Too Much. We saw him killing that woman because she was hostage, and it was like, boom, now your leverage is gone. So that was actually more impactful than I think Unforgiven was, because that was like he just killed an innocent woman for no good reason. Whereas this one, It was enjoyable, but it wasn't my favourite episode. I think I'm tainted by the fact that, I don't know if you saw in the comment section or the description box of this episode, I had a lot of editing issues with this episode. It took me ages to get this onto YouTube because YouTube kept copyrighting it. No matter how much I took out, it just took me a long time to get onto YouTube, so I'm tainted. But I did really enjoy the last bunch of scenes of Man Who Knew Too Much a lot. That was a great ending to the season, so it's got to be the season finale. Alright, Clap Your Hands If You Believe versus The French Mistake. This is an easy match, right? So Clap Your Hands If You Believe was the fairy episode. What I wanted to be the alien episode, the X-Files parody. Could have been a really fun, exciting take on aliens. Veered very quickly into fairies and leprechauns. And had some fun moments, like this screenshot was from the bit where the fairy's in the apartment, or the hotel room. And there was a couple of good bits throughout, but there was a bit too silliness with the scenes with the small, like, the elves in the workshop and stuff. I just thought it was a bit too silly for me. I wasn't a huge fan of that episode. Whereas The French Mistake was top tier supernatural. I was told it was going to be great, and I was not disappointed. And not just the fact that it was a fun episode, but it was really smart. It was really well done, to the point where, like, I appreciate it from a technical point of view, as well as just watching it and enjoying it. I enjoyed, like, the little in-jokes, the little digs at the actors, the behind-the-scenes stuff, bringing in Sarah and Eric Kripke into it, the actors, Jensen, Jared, and Misha all playing themselves, as well as, what's she called? Looks like Gwendolyn. Is it Guinevere? Genevieve, very similar. Amy playing Ruby, or his wife, Sam's wife. And I just thought it was very fun, very smart. Did tie into the Balthazar storyline with Raphael as well, which is the main bulk of the episode. I just thought it was top tier comedy for Supernatural. Very meta, which Supernatural does very well. And I just thought it was great. So between these two, it's not really a contest. Appointment in Samara versus Like a Virgin. Appointment in Samara, mid-season finale. Dean had to become death and kill people, or take people's souls. Started off really easy, as expected, with like a bank robbery that went wrong, or a shop robbery that went wrong. It was a shop. And he got shot and died, and it was easy to help him move on because he did a bad thing. Well, then it got harder with like a young girl that he had to help die, and other things, and how he tried to change that, which led to other deaths. Very Final Destination, which I'll probably talk about in another episode, that Titanic one. But it was great to see Death again. Death is always a brilliant character. He's so fantastic. But even aside from that, it was Sam getting his soul back finally, which we were waiting for from episode 1. And also just all the stuff with emotional, moral chats about Dean and those souls. Really interesting. Like a Virgin was good. I enjoyed the bits where it's like we're stealing this virgin woman and we took her down, and that's how we got Eve out. I thought the ending was really dramatic and great, and I wish it had amounted to more, because I think that was a really excellent character entrance. I thought that if that was been the big bad for like a whole season, I would have been hyped, because that end scene, which I took the thumbnail from, I thought was brilliant. But the episode itself with the dragons was okay. I didn't love most of it. I thought there were some funny bits, because I think this was the episode with that professor lady who turned out to be immortal, and the sword in the stone. I thought that scene was all really fun, but there's the whole thing about the dragons, I thought they could have done a lot more with. So for me, easily Appointment in Samara. Next, You Can't Handle the Truth versus, I can't read that. Right, Let It Bleed. My eyesight is not the best without my glasses on. And so I was like, what the hell does that say? So You Can't Handle the Truth was I can't remember the name of the goddess who was there, who made people tell the truth. And I enjoy that in every show that I've watched that's sci-fi, where there's always an episode where people have to tell the truth. I just think it's always fun and leads to fun consequences. Now, this led to dark consequences as well, like the scene with the dentist, where the patient, who was the dentist's friend, basically admitted to like assaulting his young daughter in that way. And obviously the dentist killed him. Fair enough, I understand why. But I just thought it was fun. I liked Sam and Dean finally telling the truth to each other. Well, Dean told the truth to Sam, but Sam wasn't affected by the whole goddess thing, so he could lie, but Dean couldn't lie. So that was quite a fun dynamic. And just that whole trope of a spell or a curse or a demon or something that makes you tell the truth, I just think is really fun. But they've done it in a few sci-fi shows that I've watched, and I really enjoy it. Let It Bleed. Emotional. Lisa remembering brought back in the penultimate episode. Why would you bring that character back at such a late stage of the game when we've already finished their storyline? Oh yeah, to either kill them off or do something really bad. And good episode with Castiel. No, Crowley kidnapped them to try and stop Dean coming after him because he wanted to not get killed. And long story short, there was a demon fight. Lisa got stabbed. Castiel saved her life. But to kind of make things up to Dean because he'd been a naughty, naughty boy. But then Dean, to try and protect Lisa and Ben, wiped all memories of him from their minds, which was sad. Yeah, just a really sad ending to a beautiful storyline. I was always a little part of me that wished one day in the future, in the end of Supernatural, Dean could make a happier life with Lisa and Ben, because I think they could be happy together. Unfortunately, wasn't meant to be. But really sad episode toward the end. Which should I put between the two? I don't know, because this was more fun for me. But this had a really sad ending. Like a really sad ending. But the episode as a whole was good. Like it wasn't incredible, but the ending was really good. Whereas this one, I'm going to go for You Can't Handle the Truth. I think it might be a controversial opinion. Purely because I just enjoy that trope. That's just something that I enjoy. But like other people enjoy tropes I don't. For example, like time travel episodes I really like. I think Frontierland did well. And episodes like memory loss episodes I'm not a big fan of, but I know other people love it. So for me, just for this, because I know none of them are going to get to the top spot anyway, I'm going to go for You Can't Handle the Truth. Controversial, I know. They're both very good. Caged Heat versus And Then There Were None. I don't even remember Caged Heat. Let me have a look. Oh, okay, so this is all where Crowley died. I'm reading through the description of the episode. I was like, oh yeah, that's a really good episode. But again, the fact that I forgot bits of it kind of concerns me. Because how can I put that as my favourite when I don't remember the episode, you know? But it's a really fun episode with Meg, Crowley, the Hellhounds, trying to track down monsters to get to Purgatory, Samuel, all that sort of stuff. And the whole Crowley dying, I think would have been more impactful for me if I didn't know, just from the show being on TV for 15 years, that he was in a good portion of the show. So I kind of knew that wasn't going to be the end of Crowley. I didn't know how or why he would come back. Obviously we learned that Castiel faked his death. Naughty. But, good episode. I think I really enjoyed it. From what I can remember. Reading the description, I was like, oh yeah, anything with Hellhounds I really like. I think the Hellhounds are really impactful for something that's invisible. But I guess it was a good episode. I need to rewatch that one, I really do, to remind myself. But and then There Were None, really good setup for an episode. My reaction was very odd to it because of the ending, but Then There Were None, basically a group of our characters in this place where there's a parasite which turns them against each other. Like I say, a trope that I really like, and I implore you, if you've not watched X-Files, to at least watch season 1, I think episode 8, Ice. Very the same setup. Our characters bunged in with some other characters in this isolated setting, and a parasite that crawls in your ear and gets you to kill each other. And so I think that did it better. But I really enjoyed this episode. I think I was just taken aback by the fact that there was so many character deaths, and I thought, well, this can't be real. They're not going to kill off, was it Gwen? Was she called Gwen? And Rufus and Samuel. They're just not going to do it in one episode. And they did. So in hindsight, looking back on it, that's actually a really fun setup, and it was a good way to do it. And it was a really fun tense. Who can we trust? Who can we not trust? So I think if I remembered this episode, I would have preferred this one. But because I actually remember this episode a lot more, I've got to pick this. I was going to pick that and go along with it because I don't remember. On to the second round on this side. 2.5 Men versus Frontierland. Quite an easy one for me, I think. I'm not a big fan of babies in general. Whilst I enjoyed the storyline of Dean trying to be a father and looking after this baby, I enjoyed the Wild West stuff a lot more, so I'm going to go for Frontierland. All Dogs Go to Heaven versus The Man Who Knew Too Much. I've got to go for the finale again. I think the last few scenes were so impactful and so intense. And whilst I enjoyed the start of that episode, the last scenes didn't make up for it. Whereas All Dogs Go to Heaven was a good episode, a good moral debate to be had. But overall, I think The Man Who Knew Too Much had definitely more impact on me once I'd finished that episode. The French Mistake versus Appointment in Samara. Both very strong episodes of the show. I think they're both actually probably the top bunch of episodes of this season. Very funny, very meta, very smart. The French Mistake, Appointment in Samara. Mid-season finales and finales are always good on the show usually. Death is great. Dean Bean. Death is great. But I think The French Mistake is just... It's one that I would rewatch, I think, more so than Appointment in Samara, because that would make me want to cry. But I think this time, The French Mistake, definitely a top episode. And You Can't Handle the Truth versus Then There Were None. Ooh, that's a good one. Again, I don't think either of these are going to get to the top. But between the two, I'd probably go for... Probably You Can't Handle the Truth. Again, I think that's going to be controversial. Because I know a lot of people think that the last half of the season, or the last bunch of episodes of the season, are like the top tier of the season. But I just really enjoyed the setup of You Can't Handle the Truth. On to the third stage of this side. Frontierland versus The Man Who Knew Too Much. A part of me wants to go for the finale because that last few scenes definitely made the episode really strong for me, but the first half was just okay. Whereas Frontierland as a whole was like a really good episode. So I think for the first time in Supernatural history, for me anyway, I might be picking something that's not a finale to get to the end. Because I think the first 5 seasons, I picked the finale as my favourite episode. But I think as a whole episode, I'm going to go for Frontierland because I think I would enjoy watching that whole episode again more than I would enjoy watching all of The Man Who Knew Too Much. Does that make sense? Like, when I do a rewatch of the show, obviously I'm going to watch all of every episode, but if I had to pick bits of episodes to watch, or pick episodes to watch, I'd probably watch all of Frontierland again over the first half of this episode. I don't know. I just think the last half was a lot better than the first half. For a finale, it just felt very slow. I think if they'd have separated the first half of Sam Having No Memory to, like, a penultimate episode, and then the finale being all about the final showdown, maybe, but controversially, maybe, I don't know. I'm really torn with my opinions this season, but I'm going to go for Frontierland. And The French Mistake versus You Can't Handle the Truth. Easy one for me, The French Mistake. I like both episodes, but French Mistake was miles and above better than the other one. And the final match on this side, we have Frontierland versus The French Mistake. This time, it's an easy one for me. The French Mistake, I think, is a very, 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 very strong episode of this show. And not just this season, but the show in general. Whilst I enjoyed Frontierland, I think it was a really good episode. For me, The French Mistake was fantastic. Okay, on to the second half, which is only 3 matches to start with, but the last bunch of initial matches between these episodes, we have My Heart Will Go On versus Family Matters. So My Heart Will Go On, the Titanic episode. Somehow Ellen is alive and well and married to Bobby, and this is just the normal thing. Whilst these Final Destination tests are happening, turns out Balthazar went back and stopped the Titanic from sinking, which he said was to do with the Celine Dion song. We discovered it was about Castiel wanting more souls in his fight against Raphael, and so by stopping the Titanic from sinking, in current time, 50,000 more people are alive than would have been than otherwise, so he had more souls to play with. So that's really dark, and how Fate was trying to course correct, I thought was really smart. I actually really liked her, I thought she was fun, but just in general, the way she killed people in that Final Destination-esque style thing, that Rube Goldberg machine sort of deaths, like the beginning with the garage, I thought it was really fun, and I enjoyed the episode. Sad to see Ellen come and go again, because they keep bringing her back just to let her go again. Obviously, we knew the right thing to do was to go back and course correct history, as much as that meant Ellen was going to have to die. Family Matters, that Alpha Vampire was the main thing I remember from that episode. He was fantastic, so they captured the Alpha Vampire to try and get to Purgatory, and I believe this is the episode where we found out about Purgatory. So yeah, that was really dark, and obviously I didn't like Samuel anyway, didn't trust him from the start. But this was proof of why I didn't like him. And the Alpha Vampire was fantastic. I thought his performance was standout from this episode. He was creepy, he was funny, he was charming, but very threatening without really moving. He was tied to that chair most of the time, but just the way he spoke and held himself was great. And I loved that, and I thought that was really fun. So between the two, I think I'm going to go for Family Matters. I actually really enjoyed the episode. Whilst I loved seeing Ellen again, and the whole Titanic thing was fun, Family Matters are stuck in my head more, because the Alpha Vampire, I just thought it was fantastic. Even though this episode made me angry because of Samuel, I just thought as a whole it was just a stronger episode. Okay, Weekend at Bobby's versus Mannequin 3, The Reckoning. Weekend at Bobby's, great episode, all about Bobby and his life when he's not helping Sam and Dean. That wasn't part of the episode, but it was like, what does Bobby do when he's not on the phone to them or with them? And it was all about his day-to-day life and how he helped other hunters, how he had a neighbour that he fancied and he tried to help her, and there was demons that he killed, and he was torturing demons in his basement, and I loved that episode. I just thought he was great, and more Bobby episodes, please, because he's fantastic, and I'd just love to see him get in the spotlight. And Mannequin 3, The Reckoning, I was probably one of the minor few, looking at Patreon comments, that actually really enjoyed this episode a lot, but I think that's because I loved watching these mannequins come to life. Even though it turned out to be because of a ghost, just seeing these different mannequins come to life was the kind of horror that I love. I love that kind of stuff. Statues, mannequins, dolls, all that coming to life. I found it really creepy, really great. That's why I love that Doctor Who episode, Blink. Kind of give me vibes with that, even though it was very different. Or that Doctor Who episode about the mannequins that come to life is probably a better comparison. But I think from a show that does a lot of just people or humanoid-looking monsters with different eyes, this was the kind of thing that I wanted. Even though it turned out to be a ghost possession, I didn't care about that. I enjoyed it what it was. But overall, as an episode, Weekend at Bobby's really got my heart, because I love Bobby. I liked seeing him. I felt sorry for him because of the stuff with his neighbour that he fancied, and Oh, that was sad. But that was a really strong episode of the show. And the final initial match, Live Free or Try Hard versus the man who would be king. Live Free or Try Hard, the episode where Dean turns into a vampire, which I never expected to happen in the show, because when he was about to get bitten, I was like, they're not going to do it. And then he was just turning into a vampire. But then I was also like, oh, he's not going to stay a vampire, and he didn't. There was a way to reverse it. Funnily enough, we never heard about it before, but all of a sudden we know how to reverse it. And that was really fun to see him struggling with the vampire urges, trying not to hurt Lisa and Ben, even though he hurt Ben a little bit, and then hunting down the alpha and going there. And there being some very gay undertones in that scene, if I remember correctly, where the alpha was just like, let me show you around the private tour or something like that. I was like, yeah, if Dean walked into my house, I'd be like, you, here, now. Let me give you a private tour of the house. But that was a really fun episode. Seeing Dean as a vampire was great. Very unusual for an episode. When our characters turn into some sort of monsters, that's good. Gave me vibes of that episode in season 3, I want to say, when that other hunter turned into a vampire. That was good. And the man who would be king, all about Castiel and his journey in the season, about how things have transpired, that he's working with Crowley. He's almost been pulling the strings out this whole season. Well, he has been pulling the strings a lot. It's mostly been Crowley that started it, because he's the one that approached Castiel with the offer. But, he's the one that pulled Sam out. They helped open Purgatory. They want the souls. They want this and that. And how Castiel wants to do all this stuff to win the war. So it's kind of that moral debate of he's doing bad things for a good outcome. Like, there was the whole thing with Dean discovering that Castiel was working against them, and that whole bit where Castiel dropped himself in it, which was great. But there's a lot of things to discuss that episode as well, so I think I'm going to pick that one. Definitely was a lot better. Enjoyed both, but that one had a lot more to discuss. Okay, Family Matters versus Weekend at Bobby's. For me, easily, Weekend at Bobby's was a strong episode that stands out more in my memory, and then the last one moves on because it has to. Okay, the final match on this side, because the next one's going to jump ahead to this bottom bit here, because there's nothing to go against it. Weekend at Bobby's versus the man who would be king. Both really strong episodes. Again, these two are probably ones that were going to be right at the top for me. And I know The Man Who Would Be King is a lot of people's favourite episodes. I was hyped up for this episode on Patreon. A lot of people said, episode 620, you're going to love it. It's going to explain everything. It's one of my favourite episodes. So I'm scared to vote against it. But which one do I prefer? Okay, I've decided, controversially possibly, I'm going to pick Weekend at Bobby's. And I'm going to tell you why. Because The Man Who Would Be King was very, very, very good and very strong. I like to say one of my top episodes of the season. But I think I'm going to enjoy it more on a rewatch of the season. Once I've seen all the pieces of season 6 and now I know how they all fit together. Because the season as a whole, when I watched it, which I'll talk about more in the next video, was a little disjointed when I first watched it and different, and I wasn't sure about the flow of the season, about bad guys coming and going, and was I rooting against Castiel or Crowley or Samuel or Eve, what was going on? And this episode kind of tied all that together, which was very good. I think I'll appreciate the whole thing more on a rewatch when I've seen all the pieces and seen all the clues throughout the season and it all makes sense. Whereas Weekend at Bobby's, just as an episode by itself, I loved it. Like, I really loved it. I've been thinking about the episode since I watched it and how much I loved it. But right here, right now, between the two, I'm going Weekend at Bobby's. I'm not changing my mind. And the final match of season 6, my favourite episode of the season, The French Mistake versus Weekend at Bobby's. Two fantastic episodes. Two very different episodes. One's about the life of one of the hunters, one that we don't get a lot of screen time with. Alone, anyway. It's usually him as a supporting character for Sam and Dean. One with great, funny, amazing meta episode. I already know what I'm picking. I'm not going to beat around the bush. My favourite episode of season 6 is The French Mistake. It's just brilliant. It's a really strong, fun, funny, smart, well-written, great acting, rewatchable episode of the show. Even if you don't do a full rewatch of the season, you can watch this episode by itself. Yes, there's the start at the end with Raphael and Balthazar and all that, but the main bulk of the episode, which is them getting trapped in this world where they're actors and a show called Supernatural, is just so fun and unique that it's got to be my favourite episode of season 6. Okay, and now we're going to do it all again in reverse for my least favourite episode of the season. So let's go through quickly and pick the ones I didn't pick. The Third Man, Mommy Dearest, Exile on Main Street, Unforgiven, Clap Your Hands If You Believe, Like a Virgin, Let It Bleed, It makes me sad that that's so low, but it's a part of the game, I'm afraid. And then KHT. There's some that I already know I'm going to pick on here, but let's quickly look through it. The Third Man versus Mummy Dearest. I'm going to have to go with The Third Man as my least favourite because I just don't remember the episode. When I looked at the titles, I can remember very clearly what most of these episodes are about. But The Third Man, I had to look it up. Maybe I'm just distracted by this incredibly beautiful image of Sam. Like, he's gorgeous. I can't comment how much I want to get this framed and put on a wall, on a huge mural on my wall, in like 1080p, 4K high definition picture, so that I can stare at it every day. But the episode as a whole, I'm sure, was very good. And there's bits of it that I don't remember at all. But Mummy Dearest, the culmination of the Eve storyline, finding out that Castiel was welcoming Crowley, all the different monsters that she was creating, the culmination of that, the scenes in the diner, them killing her, Thingy bringing Buck back as the mum. I think I prefer Mummy Dearest on the least favorite episode between the two, The Third Man. Okay, Exile on Main Street versus Unforgiven. First episode of the season versus the flashback with Sam. I know Unforgiven on Patreon was not a popular episode. Quite a lot of people did not like it. Or a couple of people commented that they didn't like this episode of the show. I don't know why. I don't think there's any episode of the season that I hate. But I thought it was an okay episode. Neither of them stand out to me as top episodes of the season. Usually the way I decide when I can't decide is which one I'd be quicker to rewatch. And I think I'd be quicker to rewatch Exile on Main Street because it's Sam and Dean leading a normal life, Sam and Dean being reunited, discovering that people knew about Sam being alive, seeing Yellow Eyes back, but it's just a gin, and all that I think is interesting. Was Unforgiven. Whilst I like seeing, bad Sam, sexy soulless Sam, because I didn't like the character, but he was sexy. And as one of the YouTube commented on recently said, that hot bathroom sex that he had, yeah, great, loved it. As a whole, I think I'm going to go for Exile on Main Street. It's better, mostly because this episode, just the editing of this episode, drove me up the wall as well. Clap Your Hands If You Believe versus Like a Virgin. Again, neither of these episodes were my favourite of the season. I didn't really love the fairies and the elves and the leprechauns storyline. Didn't think it was that good. Like a Virgin. Didn't love the dragons either. But I think I preferred this episode out of the two just because I liked the ending with Eve being brought out, or the mother character. And I think the dragons were better done than the elves were for me. The elves were just a bit too silly and a bit too cheesy. So yeah, I'm going to choose Clap Your Hands If You Believe out of those two. And Let It Bleed versus KHT. Both good episodes of the show, actually. Neither of these I don't like. Neither of these are going to be at the bottom. What stands out to me more is probably the emotional residue of Let It Bleed and the fallout of the episode. I think KHT I need to rewatch because I think looking at the description, it sounds like an episode that I would have loved. But I'm going to pick it because Let It Bleed stands out more. That emotional ending was tough and powerful and changes the course of the show. Like, Lisa and Ben no longer know who Dean is, so my least favourite out of the two is KHT, but I do like the episode as well. The Third Man versus Unforgiven. I think my least favourite out of the two is probably going to be Unforgiven. Whilst I don't remember The Third Man, I know I'm going to contradict myself, but reading through the episode, there was bits that I remember I was like, oh, this is my kind of episode. Like, I like the whole people are randomly dying. What's causing it? I remember some of the deaths, like the one that was in the locker room. And both episodes featured sexy Sam scenes. One, working out in the hotel room, window top on, getting very hunky, very sweaty with the sex worker. Second episode had him banging a chick in the bathroom, and that was incredibly sexy as well. Both okay episodes, I guess. Neither of them my favourite. I'm probably going to have to pick The Third Man purely because I don't remember it. I feel like, looking at the description, if I remember the episode, I probably would have ranked it higher because it came across as a monster of the week. People are randomly dying. How are they dying? And I like all that kind of stuff. But just because I don't remember it really at all, whereas Unforgiven, I do remember. I'm going to pick The Third Man, just controversially. Okay, on to the final match of this side of the board. I'm still not fully convinced on all these choices that I've made. I know some of them I'm going to change my mind on. I'm going to edit it and go, why did you pick that? Like, I probably should have put Unforgiven above Third Man and least favourite, realistically, because Third Man, one, reading the description, I was like, oh yeah, I remember the bits of this now, and the plagues and the weapons, and that's my kind of episode, the whole monster of the week. Various people are dying in different awful ways. How do we, what's causing it? Let's find out what's doing that and stop it. And with the introduction of Balthazar, I enjoyed all that, so I probably really should have picked Unforgiven as a a worse episode because that episode was okay, I guess. Whereas this one had some really fun bits. But clap your hands if you believe I'm going to pick on this side because whilst I don't remember a lot of the episode, reading it back brings back a lot of memories and I actually enjoyed parts of it. And that Monster of the Week setup was more fun and I enjoyed bits of that. But just the clap your hands if you believe actively to me was one that I remember was like, I don't really like what they're doing here. So for that side, clap your hands if you believe. On to the first initial rounds this side. My Heart Will Go On versus Family Matters. What did I choose last time? Did I choose Family Matters? I think so. So My Heart Will Go On. Mannequin 3 The Reckoning. And Live Free or Try Hard. Okay, My Heart Will Go On versus Mannequin 3 The Reckoning. Now, I am going to be very controversial here. I preferred Mannequin 3 The Reckoning. I know that's a very unpopular choice because I actually liked both, but just as a lifelong horror fan, watching these mannequins come to life and kill people hit that sweet spot in me that I've wanted from this show for a while, that I felt had been missing a little bit, which I'll talk about more in the Q&A video because it's a very interesting question I got on Patreon about that. But My Heart Will Go On was also really powerful in terms of we've got a character that we love back from the dead and we have to basically kill her again and kill these 50,000 people. So that was good. Had some more things to talk about. I liked both a lot. Neither of them are going to be my least favorite episode of the season, I don't think. So I'm going to go with My Heart Will Go On. I'm sorry, guys. I know people don't really like Mannequin 3, but I loved it. My Heart Will Go On versus Live Free or Try Hard. Ooh, interesting. Because they're both, again, good episodes. You can kind of see where this is going to go. But to try and be honest about these two episodes, which would I rewatch? I think I would rewatch the vampire one first, because I think the whole concept of Dean being a vampire is interesting, and him struggling with the urges, and Lisa and Ben and all that. Whilst My Heart Will Go On had the good setup, and I liked the whole Titanic thing, I think I would rewatch the vampire one over that. So I'm going to pick My Heart Will Go On, which unfortunately, as an episode I actually quite liked, goes into the final match. Just the way the cookie crumbles with this match bracket fight set up. But my last match, and my least favorite episode of season 6, Clap Your Hands If You Believe versus My Heart Will Go On. Easy matchup for me. It's going to be Clap Your Hands If You Believe. I think for me, it was an okay episode. It just failed to execute what it wanted to very successfully. I think it was an episode that started off in one direction and could have been an amazing UFO, alien, people that are crazy about aliens episode, an X-Files parody, and a spin on all that, and government cover-ups. That could have been a really cool episode. As an X-Files fan, I would have loved that. But then they veered off into fairies and leprechauns and elves, and I think that's where the episode took a nosedive and just didn't hit that spot, and it didn't execute what I think it wanted to very successfully. So, adding on to my favourite episodes of the season so far, my favourite episode of season 6 is The French Mistake. And joining the ranks of my least favourite episodes of the season so far is Clap Your Hands If You Believe. And that's it. That's the video where I find out what my favourite episode is, and my least favourite episode is, of Supernatural Season 6. Let me know down below if you played along. Did you play fairly with the matches? Because sometimes I find I have ideas in my head of where it's going to go, but then when I do these matches and try and do it fairly, like between these two, what moves on? Obviously, episodes that I like go right to the top of my least favourite. It's not the top, but it goes to the final rounds of my least favourite sometimes. And episodes that I don't like sometimes go further than others on some rankings. And I think it's funny that way. But let me know if you played along. What was your favourite episode and least favourite episode of Season 6? And very soon, we're going to be starting Season 7. The next video is going to be the Season 6 Q&A from Patreon Q&A. Like I say, if you ever want to join in those in the future, please go jump onto the Patreon. When I get to the end of the season, I will ask you all for questions and answer them in a Q&A. That could be quite fun. And then very, 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 very soon, we'll be starting Season 7 of Supernatural. I'm excited to see where that goes. It's going to be interesting with the final moments of Season 6. It's quite dark, so I'm interested to see where Season 7 goes. But yeah, we'll see all that very soon. As always, my name is Scott. I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave some comments down below with your favourite and your least favourite episode of the season. Please subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Take a look at the Patreon link down below to help support the channel. And I'll see you all very soon for the next episode of Supernatural Season 6. And then, very soon, Season 7. Bye guys, take care, stay safe.